up, Pleasantville? I have to start with our biggest village news. The high school football team won the Section 1 championship against Nanuet last weekend. Now they're 10-0. They're going to play Port Jervis in the first round of the state tournament in Middletown next Saturday at noon. What's Up Pleasantville and PCTV will be doing a special show, and we will be there cheering them on. If you see us, come say hi and record a little message to our team or to your favorite player. They had amazing village support last weekend. Neither rain nor game delays will keep the people of Pleasantville from their team. Today, we have a couple cool things in store for you. Did you know that we have a local orchestra? In a bit, you're going to see my chat with the new musical director for Orchestra 914, Russell Gurr. But first, our amazing reporter Charlotte is back. She's meeting with local Pleasantville cookie baker extraordinaire, Maria Sanderleaf of Ethereal Baker. Take a look.
Hi, Maria. Thanks for having PCTV and me.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Can you tell me a little bit about your cookie business?
Sure, I'd love to. I make custom designed cookies for anyone in the community and anywhere around the country. So I have these cookies here for Hanukkah. Hanukkah starts the Sunday after Thanksgiving, and I made all of these new designs for this year. And then I also made others here just for the winter. I think who doesn't love a cookie that looks like a cup of hot chocolate with some snowflakes? And I also have some new Christmas designs here, which are gnomes and Christmas trees. So when I make these for people, though, right now they're not bagged. I bag each cookie individually for freshness and for hygiene, so they stay fresh and they're clean and all that. And I put them in a box that looks like this. And the box is either this size or a larger size, so it's a great little gift. And this is an example of one with the gnomes.
These are so pretty and colorful. Can you show me how you decorate them?
Sure, I'd be happy to.
Wow, how do we get them for a holiday or a special event?
Well, the best way to do it is to email me. I'm on Facebook and I'm on Instagram, Ethereal Baker, Ethereal Baker, Baker. And you can email me, you can contact me that way, and I will respond real quickly and we can come up with a great design. So I have all these custom designed cookies that you saw for the holidays, but I also have a special surprise for you. Okay, you wanna see? Yeah, okay. I made special PCTV cookies for you. Look at that, with the logo. See that? What do you think?
Wow, cool. Everyone at the studio are gonna love these. Back to the studio with you, Joanna.
Thanks, Charlotte. As you can see, the holiday season is upon us. Thanksgiving is next week, and Hanukkah follows it a few days later on Sunday, November 28th. And speaking of seasons, the new season of Orchestra 914 is starting this Sunday. The first show is called Death and Transfiguration. Thought-provoking, right? So let's meet Russell Gurr and see what he has to say. Hello, Pleasantville. I am here with Russell Gurr, the new musical director from Orchestra 914. And I'm so excited to talk to you. I'm kind of a music hack, but I love it. So it'll be fun to get to hear.
What do you mean by music hack?
Oh, I just don't have any real formal education about it. I'm one of those people that listen to it and feel it and love it.
So one of my biggest things, and one of the biggest things about the brand of the orchestra and why I aligned so well with them, was because I don't believe that should be a prerequisite. I studied for 10 years to be able to be a professional musician. You guys don't have to. Let me be your tour guide.
I would love a tour. So tell me, can you give me like the little quick history of how you came to be doing this?
When I was in my high school orchestra, my music director called me into the office one day and he said, I'm doing a 2-week residency camp with an American teacher to teach young conductors. Mm-hmm. And I think you should do it. And I said, I'm not really that interested, but thanks for asking. He said, think about it. And he spoke to me a couple more times and eventually I decided to do it. And I met this wonderful, wonderful teacher named Dale Lonis, who was the first person that I met as I think I was about 16 or 17. And I was like, that's who I want to be like when I grow up. He was just this incredibly warm, kind, gentle, wonderful educator, and set me on the path for the rest of my life. And he and I are still in touch.
That's amazing.
And then I did my undergraduate degree in Australia in music, and then I came to America in 2008 and I did my master's in orchestral conducting at the Boston Conservatory, which is here on the East Coast, and I ended up in New York, and here I am.
Amazing. So, okay, I saw that you said, I was reading your website, in order to understand the specific language a piece speaks, it is necessary to be intimately familiar with the socio-historical context in which it was conceived. Okay, so how, if you're going to go beyond the language of the composer, how do you find the balance between the original?
Well, that statement is really about meeting the music on its own terms, which means that whatever piece you're doing. So one of the things that musicians often say to me when we're doing pops shows, which is like light classics or holiday music, and by the way, we're doing 2 holiday performances, one in Peekskill on December 2nd at 7 p.m. at the Paramount, one on December 5th, right here in St. John's beautiful church, right here in Pleasantville at 4 p.m. See you there. So I treat that music the same way that I treat a Mahler symphony, which is that everything has to be beautiful, refined, nuanced, and expressive. That statement is about whether it's written yesterday by, and I just did a concert a few weeks ago with a living female composer from Brooklyn. Her name is Missy Mazzoli. You've got to learn to speak the language that that piece is speaking. So I read up about it. I read that Missy was on tour in Detroit with her band, and she discovered this book of photographs by a guy named Peter Sheeler, who used to take these beautiful photographs of urban landscapes but imbue them with a kind of pastoral serenity. And so there was a particular picture that really spoke to her, and then she wrote a piece about that picture.
Wow.
Super cool, right? And the music is a reflection of the photo.
Right.
The same as when you do a Mahler symphony. You have to know that one of the reasons that funeral marches recur with painful repetition throughout almost every one of his major works is because he was one of 13 children, 7 of whom died in childhood and infancy. So death was a huge shaper of his worldview. The same as when you go to a Shostakovich symphony and you understand that it's being written under the duress and the stress and the pressure of the Stalinist regime. So you've got to know what's going on for the composers, why they're thinking about this, why they're writing this. That applies to our program that we're doing November 21 at the Peekskill Paramount as well at 3 p.m.
Death and Transformation.
Death and Transfiguration.
Transfiguration.
So for instance, Schubert wrote a piece in 1817. Schubert wrote more than anything else Lieder, which is art song. He wrote 600 art songs, which is roughly, if you think of it as a kind of sophisticated Billy Joel. He was writing music to be played at the piano and sung in small little gatherings with good friends over wine. And they were called Schubertiads. So he writes this piece in 1817. It's called Death in the Maiden. It's this very, very sweet, little, very short song with a maiden who's terrified as she sees a spectre of death. And she says, no, go away, I'm too young, don't take me yet. And Death says to her, very surprisingly, give me your hand, you sweet and beautiful creature. I don't come to harm you. You're just going to rest gently in my arms. Which is this beautiful inversion of what we think of death as. The quartet he writes 7 years later in 1824. Why is death on his mind in 1824? Because
someone else died?
No, because he has been diagnosed with something that he's not certain. He spent a lot of time being very ill. He says that the luster and shine and beauty of life has been leached for him, and he's a misery. So he's revisiting the idea 7 years later of what death is about, and can death be a welcome friend rather than something to be frightened of? So that massively enriches your understanding of what is otherwise a blank instrumental piece.
Sure.
So,
So is that's part of the piece that you're doing on November 21st?
Yeah.
Well, that'll be a fun little history to get to then sort of feel that.
but I always share it with the audience.
Oh, good.
I
Yeah.
talk to the audience because, like I say, it's my job to know all of this. It's my brand to share all of this.
Right.
Part of the problem with classical music today is that I read an article in Philadelphia at the Curtis Institute when I was there for an audition in 2008, and I picked up the the magazine
Sure,
from the
at
school,
this,
and there was an interview, and it said Brahms would recognize a modern orchestral concert as unchanged from that which he himself attended. In the 1880s.
Wow.
In 150 years, we haven't updated the concert format.
Wow.
So my passion is to give people, to unlock for people. You said you're a musical hack, right? So people in the 19th century grew up in their homes playing instruments. Music was their mother tongue. They spoke it. They played the violin, they played the piano because there was no radio, there was no iPod. And when the sun goes down, there's not much to do. Let's make music. It's a lovely way to pass the time. It was also emulating the aristocracy, and having a good musical education was part of being a good emerging bourgeois.
Yeah.
So they all played it, they all had contact with it, they could read music, they understood the structure. It was a native language for them.
Right.
The problem for us, for our era, is that we listen to classical music the way that I listen to the news in French. It sounds beautiful, but I don't know what's being said.
Right, so true.
So I want to talk to people and give them the keys to understand the story that they can then experience through sound.
But how do you get to make it your own? So if you're taking something from, and it sounds so similar, how is your creativity brought into it? You know what I mean? Like there's...
Because the job of a conductor is, to go back to that quote again, to meet the music on its own terms. So to bring all of your life experience to bear on, and I'll give you a perfect example. The other half of the program, how neatly this is fitting together.
I love it.
The other half of the program is a piece called Transfigured Night by Schoenberg. And it's based on a poem. And the poem basically says that there's a woman who's in love with a man, and she says to him, "Before I met you, I conceived a child with another man, but now I've met you, and my life's over because I know that you're going to tell me that we can't be together." And she's going through this absolutely hysterical breakdown. And then to her unending surprise and relief, he says, "That child will be our child." And it's this beautiful story of love and acceptance and redemption. I did it for my master's recital. It was assigned to me by my teacher 10 years ago in Boston. And I haven't looked at it since, basically. But it's been living in my bones for a decade. And I came back to it, and I suddenly understand, with a decade of life experience, with
having children, getting married, living away from family, having many friends, because New York is such a revolving door, have many friends come and go, and the upheavals of COVID and of so many tectonic shifts that have happened in our world recently, that my understanding of this woman's worldview of angst and concern and worry and being distraught and the yearning for acceptance and for love. My whole view on the piece has changed, and so the way that I'm going to perform it is going to be very different because I've changed. The music hasn't changed. Right.
That's why it's universal, because it's expressing something that is fundamental to being human.
Right.
That's what all great music does. That's what all great art does.
Right.
It expresses something that we can all universally and personally identify with.
Right. So I noticed as a performer myself, I sing, I'm a novice, whatever, or even just doing this, like when I read on the teleprompter, I feel like I need that energy that comes from an audience. So this is new to me, so I even like my Shane, who's filming right now, he he kind of like helps pump me up before I have to like talk to no one in the teleprompter. Technically, I'm talking to all of you, but I don't see you and I don't get your energy. How, if your back is facing the audience, are you just getting the energy that what the orchestra is getting from the audience and it's feeding through you and then back to the orchestra and back to the audience? And how is that energy, or do you get an energy level from the audience?
There is the focused attention of an audience is palpable. And you don't have to be looking at them to feel it.
Right. Like a spiritual experience almost, yeah?
We were speaking before about our own spiritual
Beliefs.
Mine is derived from humans.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm what you would call a humanist.
Yes.
Because my most spiritual experiences, in my 20s, they were on dance floors and nightclubs. But there's something, there's a transfer.
Sure.
There's something tribal and primitive about being in a group of strangers and physically moving to music. If a slightly different permutation of that is being in a concert hall with strangers, experiencing music. There's one of my favorite writers on music, a guy named Michael Steinberg, said that there's something about public solitude, which I love as a concept.
What does that mean?
It means to sit by yourself, surrounded by thousands of people, and share an experience. And that experience is the most fundamental human driver to connect with other people. So when we go and see a film, so one of the sad things that's happened is that as home theatres and streaming has become so readily accessible, it becomes much more arduous, especially when you've got kids and whatever. Why would I leave my house to go see a movie when I can watch it here and I can pause it when I need to and whatever? And you know what? I'm tired. I'll turn it off tonight. I'll finish it tomorrow. But sitting in a cinema like we used to, and laughing at the same time and being frightened at the same time, and that palpable like collective sense of tension and release, that is all heightened and reinforced. When I was a teenager, the thing that we all watched was The Simpsons. And I noticed that when I watched it by myself, I didn't laugh out loud. When I watched it with my mates or my sister, I laughed uproariously. That was my first time that I understood how important it is to share it with other people.
Right.
So the word conductor has its etymology from, it's the same as in science. It's the transfer of energy from one sphere to another, from the inspiration of the composer to the conductor's interpretation, which is then transfused into the orchestra, which then passes it through the conductor, who's the most visually interesting thing that's happening, to the audience. And then what you were talking about, that alchemy, that energy exchange happens between all of us. And you can, that's the thing that I've missed a huge amount during COVID. The interaction with the orchestra and feeling that connection with the audience.
Absolutely. You know, it was interesting even watching people that put things together on Zoom and like the little pieces and stuff. And it still sounded beautiful. And I wanted to support people who were doing their art during that time. And so I watched it and I enjoyed it. But seeing live music, hearing live music, I'm the one that's like always like bobbing her head and the thing, and I don't
You're
care.
my favorite. I love those people.
Oh yeah, I sometimes I feel like it's a little too much. And then I'm bobbing, and then I get self-conscious. I'm like, oh, I have to be.
No. Don't ever feel that way.
Yeah.
That's part of the problem. Our behavior in a concert hall dates back to Wagner, who decided because he wanted people to behave in a certain way in his operas in the 1870s, 150 years ago, that we have to sit like we're in church.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Because I sit there like when I'm the most at ease, when I'm the least self-conscious and I'm the most engaged, I'm like you.
Yeah.
And those are my favorite people because they're the most receptive.
Right.
So don't change that because you think other people want you to sit still. If people want you to sit still, for me, they've got the problem.
Right.
I want you to be as invested and engaged as possible.
Thank you so much for coming. This was really interesting, and I cannot wait to go and see all of your shows and bob my head in the audience.
Come. Yes, and feel free to, exactly.
Move around and not worry about it at all.
That's what we want. We want people to be engaged. We want people to feel relaxed in our concerts. Our concerts again, November 21 at the Peekskill Paramount at 3 p.m. Beautiful, transcendent music of Schubert and Schoenberg. Our 2 holiday programs, December 2nd at 7 p.m, also at the Peekskill Paramount, and then right here in this beautiful, intimate St. John's Church on December 5th at 4 p.m. We look forward to your company.
Thank you so much. Thanks for coming. Bye, Pleasantville. Thank you so much, Russell. It really is important to support the arts in our community, so go check them out. And also, this is the last weekend of Art Stage's community stage show of Merrily We Roll Along. I highly recommend going to see it. Art Stages does incredible, high-quality shows. I am so thankful that we have such wonderful opportunities for families in our town. And on the thought of being thankful, take a moment to pause and think of what you're grateful for. Really, take a moment. Do it now. I am so grateful that my children are healthy and warm and not hungry. PCTV is going to be posting on our social media ways for you to get involved to help others. There are local food banks and coat drives and several Toys for Tots drop-off spots. It's clear that our village really rallies and supports great causes, especially this time of year. We at PCTV feel such gratitude for the community's support. I'm actually truly thankful for our right to free speech. PCTV is here to support that reality. This is what public access TV is for. So if you have something to say, even when it's in conflict with my liberal left feminist views, you are free to say it here. Civil discourse is welcome. Just please remember to be kind to one another. We are neighbors. And PCTV is your community voice.